Hi friends, we're out of homemade bread and that's something that I like to always keep on hand, and so I'm going to show you how I make bread. There's a million ways to make bread. Because I had lots of kids and I like to use whatever needed to be used up, quite often we would have hot cereal in the morning, oatmeal, cream of wheat, rice, and I would take what was left and put it into my bread. But I found that I loved it so much that even without leftovers, I've got 6 cups of liquid, and I happen to have some milk that needed to be used up. I've got 2 cups of quick oats. I will add that to the milk. I'm going to put it in the microwave for 6 minutes. That'll warm the milk and begin to incorporate the oats and the liquid. And then we'll come back. I'll have the recipe for you, but 6 cups of liquid, and if you choose to put the oatmeal, you know how sometimes homemade bread can become quite crumbly. Anytime I've had the cereal in it, and it could be a lot or a little, like I said, I used up the leftovers from breakfast. But when I put 2 cups of oatmeal, it's very pliable and very nice and very moist. Then it'll come out very hot, and I'll add 2 cubes of butter, which is 1 cup. It can be oil of any kind. Your liquid can be water, it could be whey, it could be milk, it could be fruit juice if you wanted it. So it's 6 cups of liquid, your choice, 2 cups of oatmeal, that's my choice, and or any leftover, more or less, and a cup of oil. And so we'll be back as soon as I have this heated for 6 minutes in the microwave. You see how I'm putting the 2 things of butter down deep in the milk and the oats, and giving it a few minutes to be able to dissolve. The oats have rehydrated and they're up here at the top, and it's very warm. That's why I don't warm the butter, is because I want the butter to help cool it off a little bit. Now each person does their bread a different way. They are able to you certainly can hand knead it. I choose to use my bread maker, my Bosch. There's going to be a cup of sugar, honey, sweetener of any kind, and when I have leftover jams, which I happen to have a little right now, it's going to create a red hue to the bread. It'll be slightly pink. This is for us, and we don't care, but Grandpa and I aren't using up the jam fast enough. So I put jam in it. I have jam that goes old, or fruit that becomes darker in my pantry. We can't use it fast enough. I'll blend it and it becomes the 6 cups of liquid. So like I say, I do things to use up and yet still use up food and yet still add nutrition. Now, I'm going to add, you can see it's rehydrated and the butter's still melting in this hot liquid. Okay. And and it will continue to melt and become very liquefied. So it's basically a liquid, an oil, a sweetener, and like I said, I'll have listed the ingredients, but I choose, now some people will choose to put their flour on top of the hot liquid and then their dry yeast. It's evening and I don't want it to take any longer to start to activate, so I'm going to use and just rinse this out with a half a cup of warm water. Then I will add my yeast and the reserved sugar that I kept from my amount, the cup. And as soon as this is warm enough to activate the yeast, I will put just a half a cup of warm water, right? That's perfect. Now, I use Saf yeast. It's dry yeast. I love that brand. It's 4 tablespoons. For this recipe, okay? I'll totally incorporate and get it. And the sugar will help to feed and activate the yeast. That's why I put that little bit of sugar in there. And so we'll wait for about a minute for it to activate. Bread is very, very forgiving. And like I said, you can use all sorts of ingredients as long as you, for yeast bread, have a liquid, an oil, a sweetener, and your flours. And I'm going to use, I only have a little wheat flour ground, and so I'm going to use that. And if I had more, I would use more. Like I said, tonight, I'm just wanting to make, this will make 6 loaves of bread, 6 very nice loaves. And so this will be half wheat and half white. And you can tell, I'm going to begin my mixer. That's assisting the butter to go ahead and fully melt. And it's incorporating the wheat flour to cool off the hot liquid and oats. Now, you see how this is slightly pink, and you can even see a few little bits of the fruit that was in the jam. That's not going to make an ounce of difference for us. I'm going to begin with about 4 cups of white flour, and my yeast is now activated, and so I will add that on top of the flour so that if my oats are too warm, it will not scald my yeast. You see how it's all bubbly and ready to go? There we go. Here again, this is Grandma. I just rinse out the bowl so that I can get every bit of the yeast. Now, place this on. Pulsing so that I don't have flour dust everywhere. And you continue to add your flour until it begins to pull away from the side. That's how you know how much flour to put. Take about 4 teaspoons of salt. Is what our taste likes for this recipe. It's still sticking to the sides. So, I will continue to add flour. Let me remove this so you can see. It's starting to clean the sides a little. We'll let it incorporate all that flour and see if that's enough. Cleaning the bowl. It's just about there. Too much and it'll make it dry, but see, that's perfect. Right there, it's cleaned the sides, and we're going to let it knead for 10 minutes. We have an electric mixer. We'll turn it off and come back at the end of 10 minutes. 10 minutes has passed, and you see how it's cleaned the edge of the bowl? Now I'm going to remove this bowl. I've already prepared my sideboard. I will grease it and begin to roll out the loaves of bread. All right, we're going to take just a little Crisco. I've cleaned the countertop, put it on, and form our loaves. I've already used the Crisco to grease 6 loaf pans. Come on. There's so much gluten formed, it's already doing its thing inside the bread maker. But it's very, very nice. It's not sticking to my hands. It just needs to release itself from the bread maker, and then we'll have some amazing loaves, I believe. We'll let you judge that at the end of this video. Matter of fact, I think Grandpa's hoping that he might be able to do a little judging at the end of the video. To have hot bread in the evening is a wonderful treat for both of us. You don't like that, do you, dear?
Love it.
Okay. There we go. Get the bread hooks out. This bread has a very nice texture. Even with all the stuff that Grandma used. The jam, I had some buttermilk and some, look at how nice, no sticking. It's going to form beautiful loaves. Okay. Those should be relatively the same. This one looks like it may be the smallest. And this looks like it may be the largest. So let's see what these loaves are. These 6 loaves pan out to be. Once I get them partially formed, I can tell. This one is heavy, and this one is heavy so far. The ends quite often will be your smaller ones, but this feels like a fairly well proportioned one. We have lots of granddaughters that are really quite proficient at bread making. The only thing that they are still practicing is getting it smooth. And I'll show you how I do it. You can do it however you would like. First, you want to make sure you get all of the air out. And then on a greased surface, look, that's very, very smooth and very nice. And I take it to my buttered loaf pan, put it in. We will cover it with a dish towel. Let it raise for about an hour until it doubles in size. Now see, here's a little bitty red flick. That's the strawberry jam that I used up as part of the sweetener. That one, to me, is still a little large. And you don't need to be afraid to do a little pushing, and they still stay very nice and smooth. Now, this recipe makes delicious rolls. We do quite often. I will call one of the kids that lives close, or 2 or 3, and say, hey, today's bread making day. And would you prefer a loaf of bread or a loaf of dough? And if they say a loaf of dough, that means they will probably be doing Navajo tacos. We're not very good at making fry bread, but we do take yeast bread, or I'm not very good at doing fry bread. I always put my thumb through it, but I can take yeast bread, and the elasticity of the yeast bread, I make a nice round flat tortilla looking thing, and then the grease bubbles up and makes a wonderful Navajo taco. So you can do all sorts of things with this. It makes an amazing cinnamon roll. But as you can tell, there's 6 loaves that in about an hour will go into the oven, and we will have hot bread in about an hour and a half. You cover it, it helps keep the temperature more constant, and as the yeast activates, the warmth will help it raise faster. Come back and see how it tastes. Here it is. They're out of the oven. I will grease the tops. I use a little Crisco. It keeps the crusts nice and moist. I turn them out and let them cool, and then they'll go in plastic bags. Looks like we've got us a nice week's worth of bread, and hope you've enjoyed. Hope you'll try it. And remember, you can use all sorts of ingredients. Have fun. Good night. It took 25 minutes at 350. And because I didn't even start this until later this evening, my sweetheart is already crawled into bed and asleep. But let me cut one of these loaves and you can see the texture. They're very warm, and so, but I'll enjoy the heel of a loaf of bread tonight with some melted butter and a little bit of my freezer jam that I quite enjoy. Well, here it is. That's a nice crumb, as they call it. It's not got air holes, but you can see the little bitty flicks of red that came from the jam. I'm trying to do this with one hand, but you can see how the butter will just melt right on it. And tonight, we'll have a little bit of our homemade peach jam from our own trees. As you can tell, I like as much jam as I do bread, almost. But at least it's yummy. My sweetheart had already fallen asleep. It was late before I started this, and you'll have to excuse the curly hair today. I got out of the shower, and that's the way it stayed. But the bread was delicious, and I want you just to remember, you'll have the recipe listed on how to do it. But when it comes to the flour, if you've got I never measure the flour, but the secret is, if you're doing an electric mixer with a bread hook, you do it until dough gathers and cleans the bowl. Now, you don't want it a stiff dough, so you do it just barely to that point. If you're doing it by hand, go ahead and add your flour slowly, and when it allows you to not have any sticky on your hands or whatever, and it has a nice texture like what you saw the dough that is in this video. As I was molding it out into the loaves, you saw how supple and nice and workable it was, and that's the texture you want to get your dough to. I enjoyed the bread tonight. I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you'll even experiment and put a few things. You couldn't taste the jam, you couldn't taste the buttermilk that I needed to use, and you couldn't taste the oatmeal, but it was a delicious loaf of bread, and anything you desire to put in there, any grains that you like or are seeking for nutrition, go wonderful in a loaf of bread. Thanks for listening.